The greatest power you will ever possess lies not in your muscles, not in your wealth, not in the circumstances that surround you, but in the extraordinary instrument sitting right between your ears. Every single moment of your existence is shaped by this magnificent 3-pound universe, this biological supercomputer that processes millions of bits of information every second, creates your reality, determines your success or failure, and holds within it capacities so vast that most people never tap into even a fraction of what's truly possible. William Walker Atkinson understood something that transforms ordinary individuals into extraordinary achievers, something that separates those who merely survive from those who truly thrive, and that fundamental truth is this: your mind is not just a random collection of thoughts and memories, it is a sophisticated tool that can be trained, refined, and directed with precision to create the life you've always dreamed of living. Most people wander through life as passengers in their own existence, never realizing they could be the driver. They believe their thoughts just happen to them, that their mental patterns are fixed, that intelligence is something you're either born with or without. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Your mind operates according to specific principles, laws as reliable as gravity, as predictable as mathematics. And when you understand these principles, when you learn to work with them instead of against them, you unlock a power that can reshape your entire world. Atkinson spent years studying the workings of human consciousness, diving deep into psychology, philosophy, and the emerging sciences of his time, and what he discovered was revolutionary. The mind is not a mysterious black box beyond our control. It is a magnificent instrument waiting to be played by a skilled musician, and you can become that musician. Think about the way most people treat their minds. They fill them with whatever happens to drift by. They allow negative thoughts to take root like weeds in an untended garden. They accept limitations that were programmed into them by others, and they wonder why life feels so difficult, why success seems so elusive, why happiness remains just beyond their grasp. But there's another way, a path that requires understanding, discipline, and practice, yet rewards those who walk it with capabilities that seem almost superhuman to those still stumbling in mental darkness. The mind you have right now is not the mind you're stuck with forever. Every thought you think, every idea you entertain, every mental habit you develop is literally reshaping the physical structure of your brain, creating new neural pathways, strengthening some connections while allowing others to fade away, sculpting the very organ that determines who you are and what you're capable of becoming. Atkinson begins his masterwork by dismantling the false belief that the mind is a single, unified thing. This is one of the most liberating realizations you can have, because once you understand that your mind has different aspects, different levels, different functions, you stop being confused by your own contradictions, and you start leveraging each part for what it does best. The mind operates on multiple levels simultaneously, from the conscious thoughts you're aware of right now to the vast subconscious realm that works tirelessly beneath your awareness, processing information, storing memories, running your body's systems, and influencing your decisions in ways you never consciously recognize. Then there's the superconscious, that higher aspect of mind that connects you to wisdom beyond your individual experience, the source of sudden insights, creative breakthroughs, and intuitive knowledge that seems to come from nowhere, yet proves remarkably accurate. Your conscious mind is like the captain of a ship, setting direction, making decisions, choosing what to focus on and what to ignore. It's the part of you reading these words right now, the voice in your head that comments on your experiences, the decision maker that weighs options and makes choices. But here's what most people don't realize. The conscious mind, for all its importance, is actually the smallest part of your mental capacity. It can only hold a handful of things in awareness at once, typically somewhere between 5 and 9 items, depending on their complexity. This limitation frustrated researchers for years until they realized the conscious mind isn't meant to do everything. It's meant to direct everything else. Think of it as a general commanding a vast army, not a single soldier trying to fight an entire war alone. Beneath the surface of consciousness lies the subconscious mind, a realm of staggering power and capacity. This is where your memories are stored, not just the ones you can easily recall, but every experience you've ever had, every sight you've ever seen, every word you've ever heard, all filed away in an intricate system that makes the world's largest library look primitive by comparison. The subconscious never sleeps, never rests, constantly working to keep your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your digestive system processing, your immune system defending, all without any conscious effort on your part. But it does so much more than maintain your body. The subconscious is where your habits live, where your automatic behaviors are programmed, where emotional patterns get established, and where beliefs about yourself and the world become deeply rooted truths that shape every aspect of your experience. Understanding the subconscious is absolutely critical because this is where most of your life is actually being determined. You might consciously decide you want to be successful, healthy, and happy, but if your subconscious has been programmed with beliefs that say you're not worthy, that success is for other people, that you always fail at important things, then that subconscious programming will sabotage your conscious efforts every single time. It's like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on. You can press the accelerator all you want, but you're not going to get very far very fast. The key is learning to communicate with your subconscious, to reprogram it with empowering beliefs, to make it your ally instead of your adversary, and Atkinson provides specific techniques for doing exactly that. The subconscious mind accepts whatever the conscious mind impresses upon it with feeling and repetition. This is one of the most important principles you'll ever learn, because it means you have the power to deliberately shape your subconscious programming. When you repeatedly think a thought, especially when that thought is charged with emotion, you're creating a groove in your subconscious mind, establishing a pattern that will eventually become automatic. This is how habits form, both positive and negative. Every time you respond to stress by eating junk food, you strengthen that neural pathway. Every time you face a challenge and tell yourself you can handle it, you strengthen that pathway instead. Your brain is constantly adapting to your mental patterns, and you get to choose which patterns you reinforce. Most people have been unconsciously programming their subconscious minds for years, decades even, with thoughts they inherited from parents, teachers, peers, and culture. Someone criticized you in 3rd grade and you formed a belief that you're not good enough. Someone laughed when you sang and you decided you're not musical. Someone told you money doesn't grow on trees and you internalized a scarcity mindset that still affects your financial decisions decades later. These programs run in the background like software on a computer, influencing everything you do. Yet most people never examine them, never question them, never realize they can be changed. But they can be changed, and Atkinson shows you how. The process begins with awareness. You cannot change what you're not aware of, so the first step is becoming conscious of your unconscious patterns. Start paying attention to your automatic thoughts, the ones that arise without any deliberate effort. Notice what you say to yourself when you make a mistake. Listen to the internal dialogue that plays when you face something challenging. Observe the beliefs that surface when you think about money, relationships, success, your own abilities. Many people are shocked when they finally tune into their self-talk and realize they've been mentally beating themselves up for years, running a constant stream of criticism, doubt, and negativity that they would never dream of directing at another person. This awareness is uncomfortable but essential because you can't fix a problem you won't acknowledge exists. Once you've identified limiting beliefs and negative patterns, the next step is to consciously and deliberately replace them with empowering alternatives. This isn't about lying to yourself or pretending problems don't exist. It's about choosing interpretations and perspectives that serve you rather than ones that sabotage you. When you catch yourself thinking something like, "I always mess things up," you consciously stop that thought and replace it with something more accurate and useful, like, "I'm learning and improving with practice." The key is repetition and emotion. You can't just think a positive thought once and expect it to override years of negative programming. You need to consistently, persistently, repeatedly impress the new belief onto your subconscious, ideally while feeling the emotion of what it would be like if that belief were already your reality. Atkinson emphasizes that the subconscious mind is incredibly literal and doesn't understand negation the way the conscious mind does. When you tell yourself, "Don't think about pink elephants," your subconscious immediately conjures an image of pink elephants because it processed pink elephants while ignoring the "don't." This is why trying not to be nervous often makes you more nervous, why fighting against something often strengthens it, Why resisting a craving can make it more intense. The subconscious responds to images and feelings, not to logical arguments. So instead of telling yourself what you don't want, you need to focus on what you do want, creating clear mental images of your desired outcomes, feeling the emotions associated with achieving those outcomes, programming your subconscious to move toward your goals rather than away from your fears. The superconscious mind is perhaps the most fascinating and least understood aspect of mental functioning. This is the part of you that transcends your individual personality and personal experience, connecting to a greater intelligence that Atkinson describes as the universal mind. Throughout history, artists, inventors, scientists, and philosophers have reported experiences where solutions to problems suddenly appeared fully formed, where creative works seemed to flow through them rather than from them, where knowledge they had no logical way of possessing simply arose in their awareness. This is the superconscious at work, and learning to access it can dramatically accelerate your progress in any field. The superconscious doesn't respond to force or desperation. You can't strong-arm it into giving you insights or solutions. Instead, it operates according to different principles than the conscious mind. It responds to relaxation, to openness, to a state of receptive awareness rather than aggressive seeking. Think about how many of your best ideas have come to you not while you were intensely focused on finding them, but rather when you were in the shower, taking a walk, doing something completely unrelated, in that relaxed mental state where you're not trying to force anything. This is why so many creative people talk about the importance of rest, play, and activities that quiet the chattering conscious mind. These practices create space for the superconscious to deliver its gifts. Atkinson provides practical techniques for accessing superconscious wisdom. One of the most powerful involves clearly defining what you want to know or accomplish, then deliberately releasing it to your deeper mind before sleep. The process is simple. Just before going to bed, when you're relaxed and your conscious mind is naturally becoming less dominant, clearly state your question or goal. Feel confident that your superconscious mind is already working on it. Then let it go completely and trust that the answer will come. You might wake up with the solution fully formed, or it might arrive days later when you least expect it. But if you consistently practice this technique with faith and patience, you'll be amazed at the results. Understanding the different aspects of mind is just the foundation. The real power comes from learning specific techniques to train, strengthen, and direct your mental faculties. Atkinson dedicates substantial attention to the cultivation of attention, which he rightly identifies as one of the most valuable skills you can develop. In an age of constant distraction, where notifications compete for your awareness every few seconds, where entertainment is always one click away, where the average person's attention span has shrunk to mere seconds, the ability to focus deeply on a single thing for an extended period is becoming increasingly rare and therefore increasingly valuable. Attention is like a muscle that grows stronger with use and weaker with neglect. Most people have allowed their attention muscles to atrophy, bouncing from one thing to another like a butterfly flitting between flowers, never settling anywhere long enough to really engage with anything deeply. They wonder why they can't remember what they read, why learning feels so difficult, why they struggle to complete projects, never realizing that the root problem is an untrained attention. But here's the good news. Attention can be trained, systematically and deliberately strengthened through specific exercises, and the payoff for doing so is enormous. There are two types of attention, voluntary and involuntary. Involuntary attention is what happens when something captures your awareness automatically, like a loud noise, a bright light, or someone calling your name. You don't have to work to notice these things. They force themselves into your consciousness, whether you want them there or not. This type of attention is easy, but largely outside your control. Voluntary attention, on the other hand, is when you deliberately choose to focus on something and maintain that focus, even when there are distractions competing for your awareness. This is the type of attention that matters for learning, for achieving goals, for doing meaningful work. And it's also the type that requires training and effort to develop. Atkinson suggests a simple but powerful exercise for strengthening voluntary attention. Choose an object. Any object will do, perhaps a pencil, a coin, or a piece of fruit. Set a timer for 5 minutes. For those 5 minutes, give that object your complete, undivided attention. Study every detail, every texture, every subtlety of color and form. Notice the way light reflects off different surfaces. Consider its weight, its temperature, its purpose. The goal is not to think about other things related to the object, but to keep your attention purely on the object itself. Perceiving it as directly and fully as possible, you'll quickly discover that this is much harder than it sounds. Your mind will wander. Probably within seconds, you'll start thinking about what you need to do later, or remembering something from earlier, or judging the exercise as silly. Every time this happens, gently but firmly bring your attention back to the object. Don't get frustrated with yourself, just redirect. This exercise, practiced daily, will dramatically increase your powers of concentration. Near the 10-minute mark of absorbing this transformative wisdom, take a moment to consider how valuable this knowledge truly is, how rare it is to find information that can genuinely change the trajectory of your entire life. If you're finding value in this exploration of mental mastery, please like and subscribe to Audiobook Library. It truly helps the channel grow and allows us to continue bringing you this caliber of life-changing content that can elevate your understanding and empower your journey toward becoming the best version of yourself. Another crucial aspect of mental training involves the cultivation of perception. Most people go through life in a kind of mental fog, seeing but not really observing, hearing but not really listening, missing 90% of what's happening around them because they're lost in thought, distracted by devices, or simply not trained to perceive clearly. Developing keen perception opens up an entirely new dimension of experience and provides raw material for memory, thinking, and creative work. Atkinson provides specific exercises for sharpening each of the senses, training yourself to become more aware of visual details, subtle sounds, nuanced tastes and smells, and varied textures. One perception exercise involves choosing a familiar environment, perhaps your living room or office, and giving yourself a few minutes to observe it as thoroughly as possible. Then close your eyes and attempt to recall and describe every detail, the colors, the objects, the arrangement, everything you can remember. Then open your eyes and compare your memory to reality. Most people are startled by how much they missed, even in environments they occupy daily. This exercise reveals how much you're not noticing about your world, and regular practice dramatically improves your observational skills, which has practical benefits in everything from learning new skills to understanding other people, to simply experiencing life more richly. Memory is another mental faculty that can be dramatically improved through understanding and practice. Most people believe they simply have a bad memory, accepting this as an unchangeable fact about themselves, never realizing that memory is not a fixed trait, but a skill that can be developed. Atkinson explodes the myth of the poor memory by explaining that what most people call a bad memory is really just a lack of proper attention and encoding. Your memory is actually extraordinary, capable of storing virtually unlimited information, but it needs to receive that information properly in the first place. When you say you can't remember something, what really happened is that you never fully encoded it because your attention was divided, your interest was low, or you made no effort to connect it to existing knowledge. The foundation of a powerful memory is interest and attention. You effortlessly remember things that fascinate you, things you care about deeply, things you gave your full attention to when you encountered them. Think about a passionate sports fan who can recall statistics, plays, and details from games that happened years ago. Or a movie enthusiast who remembers dialogue and plot points from dozens of films. These people don't have better memories than you. They just had more interest and attention when encoding that information. The practical application is clear. When you want to remember something, you need to engage with it attentively and find ways to make it interesting to you. Association is the key to memory. Your brain stores information not as isolated facts, but as networks of interconnected ideas, each piece linked to many others through various associations. When you want to remember something new, the most effective strategy is to consciously connect it to things you already know. If you're trying to remember a person's name, link it to someone else you know with the same name, or create a vivid mental image connecting their name to a distinctive physical feature. If you're learning new concepts, relate them to familiar ones, finding similarities and differences. Building bridges between new information and your existing knowledge structure. The more connections you create, the more pathways your mind has to retrieve the information later. Atkinson recommends the ancient technique of creating a memory palace for storing large amounts of information. This method, used by memory champions and ancient orators alike, involves mentally placing information you want to remember at specific locations along a familiar route, perhaps rooms in your house or stops along your commute. You create vivid, often bizarre mental images of the information and imaginatively place them at these locations. When you want to recall the information, you simply take a mental walk through your memory palace, and the images you place there will trigger recall of the associated information. This technique leverages your brain's powerful spatial memory system and its preference for visual information, making it dramatically more effective than trying to memorize through pure repetition. The principle of repetition cannot be ignored when discussing memory. While understanding and association are more efficient than mindless repetition, the fact remains that repeatedly recalling information strengthens the neural pathways associated with that information, making future recall easier and more automatic. The key is to use spaced repetition rather than massed repetition. Reviewing information multiple times over increasing intervals is far more effective than reviewing it repeatedly in a single session. When you learn something new, review it after a few hours, then the next day, then a few days later, then a week later, and so on. And that information will become permanently embedded in your long-term memory. Thinking itself is a skill that most people never consciously develop. They think, of course, everyone thinks constantly, but they don't think effectively, systematically, or deeply. Random thoughts drift through their minds like clouds across the sky, one replacing another with no particular direction or purpose. And they mistake this mental wandering for actual thinking. Real thinking is directed mental effort applied to a specific problem or question, a deliberate process of reasoning, analyzing, comparing, and synthesizing information to reach sound conclusions or generate creative solutions. Atkinson identifies several types of thinking, each valuable for different purposes. Perceptive thinking involves carefully observing and noting specific details about something, gathering raw data through your senses. Representative thinking uses mental images to represent things you've previously perceived, allowing you to examine and manipulate them in imagination. Conceptual thinking deals with abstract ideas and principles rather than specific concrete things, enabling you to grasp universal truths and patterns. Reasoning involves using logic to move from what you know to what you can conclude, either through deduction, starting with general principles and applying them to specific cases, or through induction, observing specific cases and deriving general principles from them. Creative thinking, or imagination, is perhaps the most powerful form of thinking, and it's one that many people systematically suppress in themselves after childhood. Imagination is not just idle fantasy or daydreaming. Though it includes those things, it's the ability to mentally combine existing elements in new ways, to see possibilities that don't yet exist, to envision solutions to problems, to create in your mind what you will later create in reality. Every human achievement began as an image in someone's imagination before it became a physical reality. The Wright brothers imagined human flight. Edison imagined captured sound and electric light. Every building, every technology, every work of art existed first as an invisible creation in someone's mind before becoming visible and tangible. You can deliberately cultivate your creative imagination through specific exercises. One powerful practice involves taking two random objects and forcing yourself to find connections between them or to imagine combining them in novel ways. This stretches your mental flexibility and strengthens your ability to see non-obvious relationships. Another technique involves visualization, deliberately creating detailed mental movies of what you want to accomplish or become. Athletes have used this for decades, mentally rehearsing perfect performances before competitions, and research consistently shows that such mental practice actually improves physical performance because your brain and nervous system respond to vivid imagination almost as if it were real experience, strengthening the neural patterns associated with the imagined actions. The process of reasoning deserves special attention because this is how you arrive at truth, make sound decisions, and avoid the countless errors in thinking that lead people astray. Deductive reasoning starts with a general principle that you accept as true and applies it to a specific situation to reach a conclusion. If you know that all humans are mortal, and you know that Socrates is human, you can logically conclude that Socrates is mortal. This type of reasoning is powerful and certain when your starting premises are correct. But if you begin with false premises, you'll reach false conclusions no matter how impeccable your logic. This is why it's crucial to examine your fundamental assumptions about life, success, relationships, yourself, because flawed assumptions lead to flawed thinking, which leads to flawed results. Inductive reasoning works in the opposite direction, observing specific instances and deriving general principles from them. You notice that this apple falls down when dropped, and that apple and that one, and eventually you formulate the general principle that apples fall downward when unsupported. Science relies heavily on inductive reasoning, gathering data from observations and experiments to develop theories that explain patterns in nature. The challenge with induction is that you can never be absolutely certain your conclusion is universally true just because it's been true in the cases you've observed. Just because the sun has risen every morning of your life doesn't prove with absolute certainty that it will rise tomorrow, though it's certainly an extremely reliable pattern. The key is to gather sufficient evidence and remain open to revising your conclusions if new evidence emerges. Atkinson warns against numerous logical fallacies that corrupt clear thinking. One common error is arguing in a circle, where you use your conclusion as one of your premises. Another is the false dilemma, presenting only two options when more possibilities exist. There's the appeal to authority, accepting something as true merely because an authority figure said it, rather than examining the evidence yourself. There's emotional reasoning, concluding something is true because it feels true, regardless of actual evidence. There's the hasty generalization, forming a broad conclusion from insufficient data. Learning to recognize these errors in your own thinking and in arguments you encounter is essential for arriving at truth and making wise decisions. Critical thinking requires that you question everything, even and especially your own beliefs and conclusions. This doesn't mean becoming a cynical skeptic who believes nothing. It means holding beliefs proportional to evidence and remaining willing to update those beliefs when new evidence emerges. Most people do the opposite. They form beliefs early in life based on limited information, then spend the rest of their lives defending those beliefs and filtering reality to confirm what they already think they know. They seek out information that supports their existing views while dismissing or ignoring information that challenges them. A phenomenon psychologists call confirmation bias. This creates a closed mental system where growth stops and error perpetuates itself. The antidote to confirmation bias is actively seeking out perspectives that challenge your own. Deliberately exposing yourself to information and arguments that contradict what you currently believe. Not with the goal of necessarily changing your mind, but with the goal of understanding other viewpoints and testing your own position against the strongest counterarguments available. If your beliefs are sound, they'll withstand such scrutiny and you'll hold them with more confidence and nuance. If your beliefs are flawed, this process gives you the opportunity to correct them before you've wasted years or decades operating on false assumptions. Either way, you win. Judgment is the culmination of the thinking process, the ability to weigh evidence, consider alternatives, and reach sound conclusions about what is true and what course of action to take. Good judgment is one of the most valuable attributes a person can possess, distinguishing those who consistently make wise choices from those who repeatedly make poor ones and wonder why life is so difficult. Judgment isn't an innate quality you either have or don't have. It's a skill developed through practice, through deliberately engaging in the process of evaluation and decision-making, and especially through learning from both good and bad decisions. Developing good judgment requires several key elements. First, you need a broad base of accurate knowledge so you have relevant information to draw upon when making decisions. Second, you need the ability to think clearly and logically, recognizing valid arguments and spotting logical errors. Third, you need self-awareness about your own biases and emotional investments so you can account for them. Fourth, you need the willingness to consider multiple perspectives rather than immediately latching onto the first option that appeals to you. Fifth, you need the courage to make decisions even when you don't have perfect information, because waiting for complete certainty is often itself a decision with consequences. Atkinson emphasizes that good judgment also requires understanding the difference between facts, inferences, and opinions. A fact is something that can be verified through direct observation or reliable evidence. An inference is a conclusion drawn from facts which may or may not be correct. An opinion is a personal judgment that may or may not be well-founded. Most people blur these categories, treating their inferences and opinions as if they were facts, then becoming emotionally attached to them and defensive when challenged. Learning to clearly distinguish between what you know for certain, what you've concluded based on available evidence, and what you merely believe or prefer, brings tremendous clarity to thinking and communication. The emotions play a crucial role in mental functioning, and Atkinson dedicates considerable attention to understanding and managing them. For too long, Western thought treated emotions as inferior to reason, as primitive impulses that needed to be suppressed or overcome by rational thinking. More recent understanding reveals that emotions are actually essential for effective decision-making, for motivation, for social connection, and for a rich and meaningful life. The goal isn't to eliminate emotions, but to understand them and ensure they serve you rather than control you. Every emotion you experience is your body-mind system's way of communicating important information. Fear alerts you to potential danger. Anger signals that a boundary has been violated. Sadness indicates loss that needs to be processed. Joy celebrates something aligned with your values and desires. Disgust protects you from contamination. These emotional signals evolved over millions of years to help your ancestors survive and reproduce, and they're still providing valuable information today, though sometimes the signals are triggered by situations that aren't actually dangerous or significant, leading to responses that aren't appropriate to current circumstances. The key to emotional mastery is not suppression, but understanding and regulation. When you feel an emotion arising, instead of immediately reacting to it or trying to push it away, you pause and observe it with curiosity. What exactly am I feeling? Where do I feel it in my body? What triggered this emotion? What information might it be trying to give me? This creates space between stimulus and response, the space where choice lives. Viktor Frankl famously observed that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is your power to choose your response, and in your response lies your growth and your freedom. Most people have no space. They're triggered, and they react instantly, automatically, unconsciously, often in ways they later regret. Developing this space requires practice, particularly through techniques like mindful awareness and breathing regulation. When you notice strong emotion arising, immediately bring attention to your breath and deliberately slow it down, breathing deeply from your diaphragm. This simple act engages your parasympathetic nervous system, which calms your fight or flight response and activates more thoughtful regions of your brain. You can't simultaneously be in a state of calm breathing and a state of panic. The physiology won't allow it. This buys you time to choose your response rather than being hijacked by automatic emotional reactions. Atkinson also discusses the cultivation of positive emotions, not through fake positivity or denial of difficulties, but through deliberate practices that genuinely shift your emotional set point. Gratitude is perhaps the most powerful of these practices. When you regularly direct your attention to things you're genuinely grateful for, when you really feel appreciation for the good things in your life, however small they might seem, you're literally rewiring your brain to notice more positive aspects of your experience. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It means balancing your natural tendency to focus on threats and difficulties with an equally strong practice of acknowledging what's working, what's beautiful, what brings joy. The will is another crucial aspect of mental functioning that Atkinson explores in depth. Your will is your ability to make decisions and carry them out, to set intentions and follow through on them, to control your actions rather than being controlled by impulses and habits. A strong will is absolutely essential for achievement, for maintaining discipline when motivation fades, for doing difficult things that lead to worthwhile outcomes rather than easy things that lead nowhere. Yet many people have weak wills, making decisions they don't follow through on, setting goals they abandon, knowing what they should do but consistently doing something else instead. The will is strengthened through exercise, just like physical muscles. Every time you do something you decided to do, even when you don't feel like doing it, you strengthen your will. Every time you resist an impulse to do something you've decided not to do, you strengthen your will. This is why small acts of self-discipline are so valuable. They build the mental muscle you'll need for larger challenges. Committing to a simple daily practice, like making your bed every morning, or meditating for 5 minutes, and following through consistently regardless of how you feel, develops willpower that will serve you in every area of life. Atkinson emphasizes that willpower isn't just about forcing yourself to do unpleasant things. That's actually a limited and somewhat masochistic understanding of will. The highest expression of will is aligning your daily actions with your deepest values and most important goals, creating coherence between who you want to be and what you actually do. When you're clear about what truly matters to you, when you've connected deeply with your reasons for pursuing a goal, when you've vividly imagined the benefits of following through and the costs of giving up, the will becomes much easier to exercise because you're working with your motivation rather than against it. Desire is the fuel for achievement, the emotional energy that propels you toward your goals. Without desire, the will has nothing to direct, and action becomes forced drudgery rather than energized pursuit. Atkinson explains that desire isn't something to be ashamed of or suppressed, as some philosophical traditions suggest, but rather something to be understood and channeled effectively. The question isn't whether you should have desires, you're going to have them regardless. The question is what you desire, and whether those desires serve your highest good or lead you toward outcomes you'll later regret. Cultivating constructive desires involves regularly connecting with your goals at an emotional level, not just thinking about what you want, but feeling what it would be like to achieve it. This is why visualization is so powerful. When you create detailed mental movies of your desired outcomes and allow yourself to feel the emotions associated with achieving them, you generate powerful desire that motivates consistent action. The subconscious mind doesn't distinguish clearly between vividly imagined experience and actual experience. So when you regularly visualize success, you're programming your subconscious to believe that outcome is possible and natural for you, which dramatically increases the likelihood of achieving it. Atkinson also addresses the crucial importance of habit formation. Your life, in large measure, is the sum total of your habits. What you do repeatedly, usually without conscious thought, determines your health, your productivity, your relationships, your financial situation, your emotional state. Essentially everything that matters. Most people dramatically underestimate the power of habits, thinking that occasional big efforts are what create results, when in reality, it's the small actions repeated daily over months and years that compound into extraordinary outcomes or devastating consequences. The key to habit formation is understanding the habit loop. Cue, routine, reward. Every habit begins with a cue, some trigger that signals your brain to initiate the automatic behavior. The routine is the behavior itself, what you actually do. The reward is whatever benefit your brain associates with completing the routine, which reinforces the habit loop and makes it more likely to repeat. If you want to build a new habit, you need to establish a clear and consistent cue. Make the routine as easy as possible initially and ensure there's a reward that your brain values. If you want to break a bad habit, you need to either eliminate the cue, replace the routine with a better one that provides a similar reward, or address the underlying need that the habit was attempting to satisfy. Atkinson emphasizes starting small when building new habits. Most people fail at habit change because they attempt too much too fast, relying on temporary motivation and willpower that inevitably fade. A much more effective approach is to start with a habit so small it seems almost trivial. Something you can do in 2 minutes or less. Something so easy, you'd be embarrassed to fail at it. Want to develop a daily meditation practice? Start with 1 minute. Want to start exercising? Start with putting on your workout clothes. Want to read more? Start with 1 page per day. These tiny habits establish the pattern and identity. They prove to yourself that you're the kind of person who does this thing. And once the habit is established, you can gradually increase the duration or intensity. The concept of mental food is particularly relevant in today's information-saturated environment. Just as your body is built from the physical food you consume, your mind is built from the mental food you consume. The ideas you expose yourself to, the conversations you participate in, the media you absorb, the books you read or don't read. Most people are far more careful about what they put in their mouths than what they put in their minds. Yet the long-term consequences of mental diet are arguably even more significant than physical diet. Atkinson urges extreme selectivity about what you allow into your consciousness. Every piece of information you consume, every image you view, every conversation you participate in is leaving an impression on your subconscious mind, shaping your beliefs, influencing your emotions, affecting your mental patterns. If you constantly consume negative news, you'll develop a negative worldview, seeing threats everywhere and believing the world is worse than it actually is. If you surround yourself with mediocre thinking, you'll develop mediocre standards for your own thoughts. If you immerse yourself in gossip and drama, you'll find your own mind constantly churning with judgments and trivial concerns. The solution is deliberate curation of your mental inputs. Choose books that elevate your thinking rather than merely entertain. Seek out conversations with people who challenge you to grow rather than enable your limitations. Consume media that informs and inspires rather than merely stimulates and agitates. This doesn't mean living in a bubble or avoiding all negative information. It means being strategic and intentional about what you expose your mind to, recognizing that every input has an effect and that you have the power to choose inputs that support the person you're becoming rather than reinforce the person you're trying to leave behind. The power of mental imagery deserves special emphasis. Your brain responds to vivid mental images almost as powerfully as it responds to actual perceptions. When you imagine doing something in detail, you activate many of the same neural pathways that would fire if you were actually doing it. This is why athletes improve performance through mental rehearsal, why trauma can be triggered by memories and imagination, and why visualization is such a powerful tool for goal achievement. Your nervous system doesn't always distinguish clearly between a vividly imagined experience and a real one, which means you can deliberately use imagination to program yourself for success. The technique is straightforward, but requires consistent practice. Set aside time daily, ideally in a relaxed state just after waking or before sleep, to vividly imagine your goals as already achieved. Don't just think about them abstractly. Create detailed mental movies of what success looks like, sounds like, feels like. Engage all your senses in the visualization. If your goal is career success, imagine yourself in that corner office. Feel the texture of the leather chair, hear the sounds of the bustling workplace, see the view from your window, feel the confidence and satisfaction of having earned this position. If your goal is health, imagine yourself moving with energy and vitality. Feel strong muscles responding to your commands, see yourself in the mirror looking the way you want to look. Feel the pride and self-respect that comes with taking excellent care of yourself. The key is consistency and emotional involvement. A half-hearted visualization done once has virtually no effect. But a vivid, emotionally charged visualization done daily for weeks and months literally rewires your brain, creating neural patterns associated with success, making successful actions feel more natural and automatic, and programming your subconscious to guide you toward opportunities and behaviors that align with your visualized outcomes. This isn't magical thinking or wishful fantasy. It's applied neuroscience, deliberately using your brain's natural learning mechanisms to support your conscious goals. Concentration is a skill that separates achievers from drifters. In a world designed to fragment your attention, the ability to focus intensely on a single thing for extended periods is becoming a genuine superpower. Deep work, the kind that produces valuable results and genuine mastery, requires sustained concentration, the ability to hold a problem in mind for hours, to think deeply rather than skimming surfaces, to resist the constant pull of distraction and novelty. Most people have lost this ability, if they ever had it, and their productivity and quality of work suffer enormously as a result. Atkinson provides a framework for developing powerful concentration. It begins with environmental design, creating physical spaces that minimize distraction and support focused work. This means eliminating unnecessary visual clutter, silencing notifications, removing temptations, establishing clear boundaries with others about interruption. It continues with time management. Blocking off specific periods dedicated solely to focused work on your most important tasks, treating these blocks as sacred appointments that cannot be rescheduled for anything less than a genuine emergency. It includes energy management, doing your most demanding mental work during your peak cognitive hours, rather than wasting those hours on trivial tasks and trying to do complex thinking when you're already depleted. But perhaps most importantly, concentration requires intention and practice. Each time you sit down to work, you consciously set the intention to give your complete attention to the task at hand for a specific period. You might start with 25 minutes, the length of a traditional Pomodoro cycle, gradually building up to longer periods as your concentration muscles strengthen. During that time, every time your attention wanders, which it will, you gently but firmly redirect it back to the task. You don't judge yourself for losing focus, you simply practice returning to focus, over and over, training your mind like you would train a puppy, with patience and consistency. The payoff for developing concentration is enormous. When you can focus deeply, you complete in 2 hours what takes others a full day of interrupted, distracted work. You produce higher quality outcomes because you're bringing your full intelligence to bear on problems rather than just skimming surfaces. You experience the satisfaction of flow states, those periods of complete absorption where time seems to disappear and work becomes effortless. You develop genuine expertise in your field because mastery requires thousands of hours of deliberate, focused practice, which is impossible without concentration. Memory techniques become even more powerful when combined with understanding of how your brain naturally learns and recalls information. Your memory isn't like a video recorder that captures everything and plays it back on demand. It's more like a reconstruction project where you store fragments and associations and then rebuild memories from those pieces when you need them. This is why memories can be distorted over time, why eyewitness testimony is often unreliable, why you can remember the same event differently than someone who was right there with you. Understanding this helps you work with your memory's actual mechanisms rather than fighting against them. One of the most effective memory principles is the spacing effect. The finding that information reviewed at increasing intervals is retained far better than information crammed in a single session. If you're learning something new, the optimal review schedule looks something like this. First review within 24 hours of initial learning, second review 3 days later, third review a week later, fourth review 2 weeks later, fifth review a month later. Following this pattern, information that would otherwise fade away becomes permanently encoded in long-term memory, with surprisingly little total time investment. Another powerful principle is elaborative encoding, which means connecting new information to existing knowledge in meaningful ways. Thinking about why it matters, how it relates to other things you know, what implications it has. When you learn a fact, instead of just repeating it to memorize it, you ask yourself questions about it. Why is this true? What would happen if it were different? How does this connect to what I already know? What are some examples? This deeper processing creates more neural connections to the information, providing more retrieval pathways and making the information more memorable. The technique of teaching others is extraordinarily effective for deepening your own understanding and retention. When you know you'll need to explain something to someone else, you engage with it differently, looking for clarity, anticipating questions, organizing information logically. The process of actually teaching forces you to retrieve information from memory, strengthening those neural pathways, and reveals gaps in your understanding that you can then fill. This is why study groups and peer teaching are so effective, not because you're necessarily learning from others who know more, but because the act of explaining to others deepens your own learning. The relationship between mind and body is far more intimate than most people realize. Your mental state profoundly affects your physical health, and your physical condition dramatically influences your mental capabilities. When you're stressed, anxious, or depressed, your immune system weakens, your digestion suffers, your cardiovascular health declines. When you're physically exhausted, in pain, or poorly nourished, your thinking becomes muddled, your emotions become volatile, your willpower depletes. You cannot separate mind and body. They're different aspects of a single unified system, and optimizing one requires attention to the other. Atkinson emphasizes the importance of physical vitality for mental performance. Your brain, despite representing only about 2% of your body weight, consumes roughly 20% of your energy. When you're sleep-deprived, poorly nourished, dehydrated, or sedentary, your brain simply cannot function at its best. It doesn't matter how good your thinking techniques are if your brain is operating on insufficient fuel and rest. This is why successful people, despite their busy schedules, almost universally prioritize sleep, exercise, and nutrition. They understand that an hour spent on physical health returns multiple hours of enhanced mental productivity. Sleep deserves particular attention because its importance for cognitive function cannot be overstated. During sleep, your brain consolidates memories, transferring information from short-term to long-term storage, integrating new learning with existing knowledge. During sleep, your brain clears metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours, including proteins associated with neurodegenerative diseases. During sleep, your unconscious mind continues working on problems you've been consciously wrestling with, which is why solutions often appear upon waking. When you consistently shortchange sleep, you're undermining every mental faculty you possess. Attention, memory, learning, emotional regulation, decision-making, creativity, all deteriorate with insufficient rest. Exercise is equally crucial for optimal mental function. Physical movement increases blood flow to the brain, delivering more oxygen and nutrients. It stimulates the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that promotes the growth of new neurons and strengthens existing neural connections. It regulates neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, improving mood and focus. It reduces stress hormones like cortisol that impair cognitive function when chronically elevated. Research consistently shows that regular exercisers perform better on cognitive tests, experience less age-related mental decline, and report better mood and energy than sedentary individuals. The breath is a direct bridge between conscious and unconscious, between mind and body, and learning to use it skillfully provides immediate access to changing your state. When you're anxious, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. When you're calm, your breathing slows and deepens. But the relationship works both ways. You can deliberately change your breathing pattern to shift your mental and emotional state. Slow, deep breathing from your diaphragm activates your parasympathetic nervous system, triggering a relaxation response that calms racing thoughts and anxious feelings. Quick, energizing breaths can increase alertness and motivation when you're feeling sluggish. Simply bringing conscious awareness to your breath without trying to change it creates a point of focus that interrupts rumination and worry. Meditation is perhaps the single most powerful practice for developing mastery over your mind. Despite being thousands of years old, meditation has been validated by modern neuroscience as producing measurable changes in brain structure and function. Regular meditators show increased gray matter in regions associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. They show decreased activity in the default mode network, the brain region associated with mind-wandering and self-referential thinking. They report lower stress, better focus, more emotional stability, and greater life satisfaction. All of this from the simple practice of training your attention. The essence of meditation is remarkably simple, though not easy. You choose an object of attention, traditionally the breath, but it could be a mantra, a visual object, or body sensations. You place your attention on that object and keep it there. When your attention wanders, which it absolutely will, you notice that it has wandered and gently return it to the chosen object. That's it. You're not trying to stop thinking or achieve some special state. You're simply training your attention, building the mental muscle of noticing when your mind has wandered and choosing to redirect it. This skill, developed through meditation, transfers to every other area of life, giving you greater control over where your mental energy goes and what you focus on throughout your day. Starting a meditation practice doesn't require hours of daily commitment or any special beliefs or abilities. Begin with just 5 minutes per day, sitting comfortably with your spine relatively straight, closing your eyes or softening your gaze, bringing your attention to the sensation of breathing. When you notice your mind has wandered to thoughts about the past, the future, your to-do list, whatever, simply acknowledge that noticing and return attention to the breath. Don't judge yourself for mind wandering. It's completely normal and actually provides opportunities to practice the skill of redirecting attention. Do this daily, and within weeks, you'll notice improvements in your ability to concentrate, your emotional equilibrium, and your overall mental clarity. As we approach the end of this exploration of mental mastery, remember that everything discussed here is practical and applicable, not abstract theory, but tools you can use immediately to enhance your life. The mind you have today is not fixed or unchangeable. Every day, through the thoughts you think, the focus you maintain, the information you consume, the practices you engage in, you're literally reshaping your brain, strengthening some neural pathways while allowing others to atrophy, sculpting the organ that will determine everything about your future experience. This is both a tremendous responsibility and an incredible opportunity. You have far more control over your mental capabilities and your life trajectory than you've been led to believe. The process of mental development requires patience and consistency. You won't master your mind in a week or even a month. The practices Atkinson describes, the principles he explains, these need to be applied repeatedly over time, integrated into your daily life, not as occasional efforts, but as ongoing commitments. Think of it like physical fitness. You can't work out intensely for 1 week and expect to be fit forever. You need regular, consistent practice to build and maintain capability. The same is true for mental fitness. Daily attention to developing your mental faculties, even in small ways, compounds over time into extraordinary results. Start where you are with what you have. You don't need perfect conditions, elaborate systems, or expensive tools to begin improving your mental capabilities. You need awareness, intention, and practice. Choose one aspect of mental development that would make the biggest difference in your life right now. Maybe it's improving your concentration so you can do deeper work. Maybe it's strengthening your memory so you can learn more effectively. Maybe it's developing better emotional regulation so relationships improve. Maybe it's cultivating clearer thinking so you make better decisions. Pick one area, choose one practice, and commit to it daily for at least 30 days. Build that foundation, and then you can add additional practices. The power of accumulated small improvements is staggering. If you improve any area of your life by just 1% per day, a seemingly insignificant amount, the compound effect over a year is extraordinary. 1.01 raised to the power of 365 equals 37.78. You're nearly 38 times better than where you started, not through massive heroic efforts, but through consistent small improvements. This mathematical reality applies to mental development just as it does to any other domain. Small daily practices, consistently applied, transform you completely over time. Atkinson's work emphasizes that you don't need to accept limitations that others have placed on you or that you've placed on yourself. The beliefs you hold about your intelligence, your memory, your creativity, your ability to learn, these are just beliefs, not immutable facts. They can be changed, and when they change, your capabilities change with them. Every "I can't" can be reframed as "I can't yet," acknowledging that ability is developed through practice rather than fixed at birth. Every "I'm just not good at" can be questioned. Have you really given sufficient focused practice to know your true potential, or have you simply accepted an early conclusion based on limited attempts? The concept of mindset, popularized by researcher Carol Dweck but understood by Atkinson decades earlier, makes all the difference in what you're willing to attempt, and therefore what you ultimately achieve. A fixed mindset sees abilities as static traits you either have or lack. A growth mindset sees abilities as capabilities that develop through effort and practice. Someone with a fixed mindset avoids challenges because failure might reveal inadequacy. Someone with a growth mindset seeks challenges because they provide opportunities for development. Someone with a fixed mindset sees effort as pointless if you lack natural talent. Someone with a growth mindset sees effort as the path through which talent is developed. The mindset you adopt literally determines how much of your potential you'll access. Your self-concept, the beliefs you hold about who you are, functions as both a description and a prescription. It describes who you've been, but it also prescribes who you'll continue to be, because you naturally act in ways consistent with your identity. If you believe you're the kind of person who follows through on commitments, you'll follow through. If you believe you're the kind of person who gives up when things get difficult, you'll give up. This is why identity-level change is more powerful than behavior-level change. Instead of just trying to do different things, you work on becoming a different person, someone whose natural behaviors align with your goals. You can deliberately craft your self-concept through the principles we've discussed. Regularly visualize yourself as the person you want to become, not someday in the distant future, but as if you're already that person now. Act consistently with that identity, making choices that reinforce it. When faced with decisions, ask yourself, what would the person I'm becoming do in this situation? And then do that. Celebrate evidence that supports your new identity while reframing setbacks as temporary deviations rather than proof of who you really are. Over time, your self-concept shifts, and as it shifts, different behaviors become natural and automatic rather than forced and difficult. The social dimension of mental development cannot be ignored. You are profoundly influenced by the people you regularly interact with, absorbing their beliefs, adopting their standards, mirroring their behaviors often without conscious awareness. Show me your 5 closest friends, and I can predict with reasonable accuracy your health habits, your income level, your values, your worldview, even your vocabulary and speaking patterns. This isn't because you deliberately copy others, it's because human beings are social creatures with powerful unconscious drives to fit in with their social group. You naturally calibrate to the norms of the people around you. This reality means you need to be very strategic about who you surround yourself with. Are the people in your life pulling you toward the person you want to become, or anchoring you to the person you've been? Are they challenging you to grow, or enabling your limitations? Are they supporting your goals, or subtly undermining them through mockery or discouragement? These questions aren't about judging others or being coldly calculating about relationships. They're about recognizing that your social environment shapes you and taking responsibility for curating that environment in ways that support your development. Seeking out mentors, whether in person or through books and recorded teachings, accelerates your development dramatically. A mentor who has already achieved what you're working toward can show you the path, help you avoid common pitfalls, provide encouragement when you're discouraged, and hold you accountable to your commitments. You don't necessarily need a formal mentoring relationship. Reading biographies of people you admire, studying their methods, learning from their successes and failures, this provides many of the same benefits. Every book written by someone who has mastered a domain is essentially a conversation with a mentor. Access to their accumulated wisdom and experience for the price of a book. Please like and subscribe to Audiobook Library. Your support genuinely makes a difference and enables us to continue bringing you this caliber of transformative content that can genuinely reshape your understanding and elevate your entire life trajectory. The principle of teaching what you're learning serves multiple purposes simultaneously. It deepens your own understanding, as we discussed earlier. It provides value to others, which is inherently rewarding and often leads to unexpected opportunities. It creates accountability, because knowing you'll share what you're learning motivates more thorough engagement with the material. It builds your reputation and network, connecting you with others interested in similar topics. Whether through writing, speaking, creating content online, or simply sharing insights with friends and colleagues, teaching what you're learning amplifies every benefit of learning itself. The concept of mental blueprints explains why some people seem to naturally create success while others struggle despite apparent effort. A blueprint is an internalized set of beliefs, expectations, and self-concepts that determines what you unconsciously consider normal and acceptable for yourself. If your blueprint for health involves being slightly overweight and frequently tired, you'll unconsciously behave in ways that maintain that state because it feels normal to you. If your blueprint for income is $40,000 per year, you'll find ways to stay near that level, either failing to pursue opportunities for increase or self-sabotaging when you exceed it, because higher income feels abnormal and uncomfortable. The key to breaking through limitations is identifying and upgrading your mental blueprints. This requires honest self-examination of what you truly believe you deserve. What level of success feels normal and comfortable to you? What outcomes you expect even if they're not what you consciously want. Once you've identified limiting blueprints, you can deliberately work to expand them through all the techniques we've discussed: visualization, affirmations, acting as if, surrounding yourself with people who have different blueprints. consuming content that exposes you to higher standards, celebrating and normalizing successes rather than dismissing them as flukes. The practice of setting clear, compelling goals provides direction for all your mental development efforts. Without clear goals, you're like a ship without a destination, maybe moving, but with no way to know if you're making progress toward anything that matters. Goals transform vague wishes into specific targets. They focus your attention on what's important. They provide motivation when discipline is required. They give you criteria for evaluating opportunities and deciding how to spend your time and energy. Not all goals are created equal, though. Vague goals, like be more successful or get healthier, lack the specificity to guide action or measure progress. Effective goals are specific, measurable, and time-bound. Instead of get healthier, a well-formed goal might be reduce body fat percentage to 15% within 6 months through strength training 4 times per week and following a nutritious eating plan. Instead of be more successful, you might set a goal of increase annual income to $100,000 within 2 years by developing expertise in my field and transitioning to a higher-paying position or starting a side business. The specificity provides clarity about what success looks like and suggests concrete actions you can take to move toward it. Goals should be challenging enough to require growth, but realistic enough to be achievable. A goal that's too easy fails to motivate because there's no real accomplishment in achieving it. A goal that's impossibly difficult leads to discouragement because you never see meaningful progress. The sweet spot is what psychologists call the zone of proximal development, just beyond your current comfortable capability, but within reach if you stretch and apply focused effort. This requires honest assessment of where you currently are and what's realistically achievable given your starting point, available time and resources. Writing your goals down dramatically increases the likelihood of achieving them. Something about the act of putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard transforms a vague intention into a concrete commitment. Written goals exist outside your head as physical reminders of what you've decided to pursue. They can be reviewed regularly, keeping them at the front of your mind rather than lost among the thousands of other thoughts competing for attention. Many successful people make a practice of writing their most important goals daily, a simple 5-minute exercise that maintains focus and motivation with remarkable effectiveness. Breaking large goals into smaller milestones makes them more manageable and provides regular wins that maintain motivation. A goal that will take several years to achieve can feel overwhelming if you only focus on the end result. But if you break it down into quarterly milestones, monthly targets, weekly objectives, and daily actions, suddenly you have a clear path forward and regular opportunities to experience the satisfaction of progress. Each small win builds confidence and momentum, proving to yourself that you're capable of following through, which makes the next step feel more achievable. Tracking your progress toward goals provides feedback that guides your efforts. What gets measured gets managed, and when you track relevant metrics, you quickly see what's working and what needs adjustment. If your goal involves learning a skill, you might track hours of deliberate practice. If it involves building a business, you might track revenue, customers, or completed projects. If it involves health, you might track workouts completed, nutrition quality, or physical measurements. Regular review of these metrics keeps you honest about whether your actions align with your intentions and allows you to course correct before small deviations become major problems. The practice of regular review and reflection is essential for continued growth. Most people stay busy but rarely take time to step back and evaluate whether their busyness is actually productive, whether they're making real progress toward what matters most, whether their methods are effective or need adjustment. Setting aside time weekly for review, perhaps Sunday evening, to assess the past week and plan the coming one ensures you're being strategic rather than just reactive. Setting aside time quarterly for deeper reflection, evaluating progress toward major goals, celebrating wins, learning from setbacks, adjusting plans as needed, keeps you on track over the long term. Questions are more powerful than statements for guiding productive reflection. Instead of just thinking about your week or mentally reviewing what happened, ask yourself specific questions. What went well this week and why? What could have gone better and what will I do differently? What progress did I make toward my most important goals? What obstacles did I encounter, and how can I overcome or avoid them going forward? What did I learn? What am I grateful for? These questions direct your attention to useful aspects of your experience and generate insights that passive reflection rarely produces. Learning from failure is perhaps the most valuable skill you can develop, because failure is inevitable for anyone attempting anything worthwhile. The difference between people who ultimately succeed and those who remain stuck isn't that successful people fail less, it's that they respond to failure differently. They treat setbacks as feedback rather than final verdicts. They extract lessons rather than confirming limiting beliefs. They adjust their approach rather than abandoning their goals. They persist through difficulties rather than interpreting them as signs they should quit. Reframing how you think about failure transforms your relationship with risk and growth. Instead of seeing failure as proof you're not capable, see it as evidence you're pushing beyond your current abilities, which is the only way growth happens. Instead of treating mistakes as shameful secrets to hide, treat them as valuable data about what doesn't work. Instead of using setbacks as excuses to give up, use them as opportunities to develop resilience and determination. This doesn't mean you mindlessly persist with strategies that clearly aren't working. It means you learn, adjust, and continue moving toward your goals through whatever obstacles appear. The concept of anti-fragility, developed by Nassim Taleb, is relevant here. Some things are fragile, they break under stress. Some things are robust, they resist stress and remain unchanged. But some things are anti-fragile. They actually get stronger when stressed within certain limits. Your mind can be anti-fragile, growing stronger, wiser, and more capable through facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, and recovering from setbacks. But this only happens if you interpret difficulties as opportunities for growth, rather than as confirmation of inadequacy. Building anti-fragility requires deliberately seeking challenges just beyond your current comfort level. If you only do what's easy and comfortable, you never develop new capabilities. But if you consistently put yourself in situations that require you to stretch, to figure things out, to develop skills you don't yet have, you systematically expand what's possible for you. This is the principle behind progressive overload in physical training, gradually increasing demands on your muscles so they adapt by growing stronger. The same principle applies to mental development, gradually increasing cognitive demands so your mind adapts by growing more capable. Resilience, the ability to recover from setbacks and adversity, is built through experience with overcoming difficulties. You can't become resilient by avoiding challenges and staying in your comfort zone. You become resilient by facing difficulties, experiencing the discomfort, discovering that you can handle it, and coming out the other side stronger. Each time you do this, you build confidence in your ability to cope with future challenges. You prove to yourself that temporary setbacks don't define you, that you have resources to draw upon, that you're tougher and more capable than you might have believed. The importance of perspective cannot be overstated. Two people can face the same situation and have completely different experiences based solely on how they interpret what's happening. One sees an obstacle, the other sees an opportunity. One sees rejection, the other sees redirection towards something better. One sees failure, the other sees feedback. The external circumstances are identical, but the internal experience is radically different because perspective shapes reality far more than raw facts do. Learning to consciously choose empowering perspectives is one of the most valuable mental skills you can develop. Practicing perspective shifting strengthens your ability to find empowering interpretations of events. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of automatically assuming the worst, deliberately generate alternative interpretations. Maybe this setback is protecting you from something worse. Maybe this rejection is redirecting you toward a better opportunity. Maybe this challenge is developing skills you'll need later. Maybe this uncomfortable situation is teaching you something important. You're not lying to yourself or denying reality, you're simply recognizing that multiple interpretations are possible and choosing ones that serve you. The principle of acceptance paradoxically enables change. When you resist reality, fighting against what is, you waste enormous energy and create unnecessary suffering. When you accept what is, acknowledging reality without judgment, you free up that energy for productive action. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or passivity. It means clearly seeing your current situation without the distortion of denial or resistance, which allows you to respond effectively. You can't change what you won't acknowledge, so acceptance is actually the prerequisite for meaningful change. Gratitude as a practice transforms your baseline emotional state and your perception of life. When you regularly focus on what you're grateful for, genuinely feeling appreciation, rather than just going through mental motions, you train your attention to notice positive aspects of experience. This doesn't eliminate problems or make difficulties disappear, but it provides balance, preventing the natural human negativity bias from painting your entire world in dark colors. Research consistently shows that people who regularly practice gratitude report greater life satisfaction, better relationships, improved health, and more resilience in facing challenges. A simple gratitude practice involves taking a few minutes each day, perhaps in the morning upon waking or at night before sleep, to identify 3 to 5 specific things you're genuinely grateful for. The key is specificity and feeling. Instead of generic items like my family, you might appreciate the way my daughter laughed while we played together this afternoon, or how my partner made my favorite meal tonight, even though they were tired. The more specific and emotionally engaged you are, the more powerful the practice. Over weeks and months, this systematically rewires your attention patterns to notice and appreciate positive aspects of life that you previously overlooked. Forgiveness, both of others and yourself, is essential for mental freedom and forward progress. Holding grudges, replaying past wrongs, maintaining resentment, these patterns keep you mentally and emotionally stuck in the past, draining energy that could be directed toward creating your future. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior or allowing yourself to be mistreated. It means releasing the emotional charge around past events, choosing to no longer allow them to poison your present experience. It's ultimately about freeing yourself, not about the other person. Self-forgiveness is often even more important than forgiving others. Many people carry enormous guilt and shame about past mistakes, poor decisions, times they failed to live up to their own standards. This self-judgment becomes a heavy burden that makes moving forward difficult. Self-forgiveness involves acknowledging that you did the best you could with the awareness and resources you had at the time, learning whatever lessons the experience offers, making amends where appropriate and possible, and then releasing the emotional weight of past mistakes. You are not your past, you are the person you're becoming, and holding on to guilt about who you were prevents you from fully embracing who you're becoming. Purpose provides the ultimate context for mental development. Why are you working to master your mind? What are you trying to create or contribute? What matters enough to justify the effort required? Without clear purpose, self-improvement can become a kind of narcissistic hobby, endlessly optimizing yourself without any clear sense of what you're optimizing for. But when you connect mental development to meaningful purpose, when you see it as enabling you to make contributions that matter, to create value for others, to express your unique gifts, to live according to your deepest values, then every practice becomes infused with significance. Your purpose doesn't have to be grandiose or world-changing, though it can be. It just needs to be meaningful to you, connected to something beyond your own comfort and pleasure. Maybe your purpose involves being an excellent parent, raising children who are confident and kind. Maybe it involves mastering a craft, creating beauty or utility through your skills. Maybe it involves building a business that solves real problems for people. Maybe it involves contributing to your community, making your corner of the world a little better. Whatever it is, connecting your daily efforts to that larger purpose provides motivation that carries you through difficult times when short-term pleasure and long-term purpose conflict. Living with purpose also provides natural priorities. When you're clear about what truly matters, decisions become easier because you have criteria for evaluation. Does this opportunity align with my purpose or distract from it? Does this use of time move me toward what matters most or away from it? Does this relationship support who I'm becoming or undermine it? These questions cut through confusion and allow you to allocate your finite time and energy to what genuinely matters rather than spreading yourself thin across countless things that don't. The integration of everything we've discussed creates a comprehensive approach to mental mastery. You understand the different aspects of mind and how they function. You train your attention, strengthening your ability to focus where you choose. You develop your perception, becoming more aware of reality as it actually is, rather than filtered through unconscious assumptions. You cultivate memory through effective encoding and retrieval practices. You enhance your thinking through logical reasoning and creative imagination. You regulate emotions, ensuring they inform rather than control you. You strengthen your will through consistent exercise. You program your subconscious with empowering beliefs and images. You access superconscious wisdom through relaxation and trust. You maintain physical health to support mental performance. You curate your environment, relationships, and information diet to support growth. You set clear goals and track progress toward them. You learn from both successes and failures. You practice gratitude and forgiveness. You connect everything to meaningful purpose. This isn't about perfection or doing everything perfectly every day. You'll have days where you fall short, where old patterns reassert themselves, where you forget the principles and react unconsciously. That's completely normal and expected. The path of growth isn't a straight line upward, it's a general upward trajectory with many ups and downs along the way. What matters is the overall direction, the long-term trend, the commitment to continuous improvement even when progress is slower than you'd like. What matters is getting back on track when you've wandered off, rather than using a temporary deviation as an excuse to abandon the path entirely. The compounding nature of mental development means that small investments today produce enormous returns over time. Every book you read, every meditation session you complete, every moment of conscious choice rather than automatic reaction, every practice of gratitude or visualization or focused attention, all of these accumulate. None of them alone produces dramatic transformation, but together, consistently applied over months and years, they completely reshape who you are and what you're capable of. The person you'll be 5 years from now is being created by the small daily choices you make starting today. Your mind is the most powerful tool you will ever possess, the source of everything you experience, everything you create, everything you become. It's not a mysterious black box beyond your control. It's a magnificent instrument that can be understood, trained, and directed according to principles as reliable as any laws of nature. Most people never realize this, drifting through life as passive recipients of whatever thoughts happen to arise, whatever conditioning they happen to receive, whatever circumstances happen to surround them. But you now know better. You understand that you have agency over your mental development, that you can deliberately cultivate capabilities, that you can reprogram limiting beliefs, that you can access higher wisdom, that you can become far more than you currently are. This knowledge is worthless without application. You can understand every principle discussed here and remain exactly the same if you don't actually implement what you've learned. The gap between knowing and doing is where most potential dies. Reading about mental mastery doesn't make you mentally masterful any more than reading about physical fitness makes you physically fit. You have to actually do the work, consistently, persistently, patiently, trusting that small daily practices compound into extraordinary results even when you can't see immediate evidence of progress. Start today, right now, with one small practice. Don't wait for perfect conditions or complete understanding. Don't try to implement everything at once. Choose one technique that resonated with you, one practice that addresses your most pressing need. One simple habit you can commit to for the next 30 days. Maybe it's 5 minutes of daily meditation. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for each morning. Maybe it's spending 10 minutes visualizing your goals before bed. Maybe it's practicing focused attention on a single task for 25 minutes without distraction. Pick one thing and do it consistently for a month, building that foundation before adding additional practices. Remember that this is a lifelong journey, not a destination you reach and then stop growing. There is no finish line where you've completely mastered your mind and no further development is possible. There's always another level of capability to develop, always deeper understanding to gain, always new challenges that require expanded capacity. This is cause for excitement rather than discouragement, because it means you never have to be bored, never have to stop growing, never have to accept stagnation. No matter how much you've achieved, there's always more potential waiting to be unlocked. The principles Atkinson teaches have been proven across thousands of lives over more than a century since his book was first published. They're not theoretical speculation, but practical wisdom that works when applied. People have used these principles to overcome limitations that seemed insurmountable, to achieve goals that seemed impossible, to transform themselves from mediocre to masterful, from confused to clear, from reactive to intentional. You have access to the same principles, the same potential, the same power. The only question is whether you'll actually use them. Your current circumstances, whatever they are, do not determine your future. Your past does not define your potential. The limitations you've experienced so far reflect where you've been, not where you can go. Every person who has achieved something remarkable started from somewhere ordinary, faced obstacles and setbacks, had moments of doubt and discouragement. What distinguished them was not superior natural gifts, but the decision to develop themselves systematically, to apply proven principles consistently, to persist through difficulties rather than surrendering to them. You can make that same decision, and when you do, when you commit fully to mastering your mind and becoming the person you're capable of becoming, your entire life begins to change. The journey of mastering your mind is simultaneously the most challenging and most rewarding undertaking you can pursue. It's challenging because it requires confronting your limitations, your fears, your deeply ingrained patterns. It demands consistency when you'd rather rest, discipline when you'd rather indulge, honesty when self-deception would be more comfortable. But it's rewarding beyond measure because every improvement in your mental capabilities improves everything else in your life. Better thinking leads to better decisions. Better emotional regulation leads to better relationships. Better focus leads to greater productivity. Better memory leads to faster learning. Better imagination leads to creative breakthroughs. Better will leads to consistent action toward your goals. Everything gets better when you get better, and you get better by mastering the instrument through which you experience and create your entire reality. The transformation that comes from mental mastery isn't always dramatic or visible from the outside. You might not suddenly become wealthy or famous or completely different in obvious ways, but internally everything shifts. You experience a sense of agency and empowerment that comes from knowing you're directing your life rather than being tossed about by circumstances. You feel the quiet confidence that comes from having developed genuine capabilities through disciplined practice. You enjoy the clarity that comes from training your mind to think effectively, rather than being clouded by confused mental patterns. You appreciate the peace that comes from emotional regulation and acceptance. You feel the satisfaction that comes from living according to your values and working toward meaningful goals. These internal shifts then ripple outward into every area of your life. Your work improves because you bring greater focus, creativity, and persistence to it. Your relationships deepen because you're more present, more emotionally available, more capable of understanding others and managing your own reactions. Your health improves because you make better choices and follow through on them consistently. Your finances improve because you think more clearly about money and act more wisely with resources. Your sense of fulfillment increases because you're actively creating a life aligned with your values, rather than passively accepting whatever comes your way. One of the most profound shifts that comes from mental mastery is moving from a victim mentality to a creator mentality. The victim sees themselves as powerless, at the mercy of circumstances, genetics, other people, bad luck, economic conditions, their own supposed limitations. When things go wrong, it's always because of external factors beyond their control. When things go right, it's despite their best efforts or just random luck. This mindset is disempowering and self-fulfilling, because when you believe you're powerless, you don't take action to change things, which ensures you remain powerless. The creator, by contrast, takes responsibility for their experience and their results. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for things genuinely outside your control or denying that external circumstances matter. It means recognizing that regardless of circumstances, you always have some degree of choice in how you respond, and that response determines your trajectory far more than the circumstances themselves. Two people can face similar challenges and have completely different outcomes based on how they think about and respond to those challenges. The creator focuses on what they can control, their thoughts, their actions, their responses, and takes full ownership of those elements while releasing attachment to results beyond their direct influence. This shift from victim to creator is perhaps the most important transformation that can occur in your life, because it determines everything else. When you believe you're powerless, you wait for conditions to improve, for someone to rescue you, for luck to change. When you know you're a creator, you start creating, taking whatever action is available, however small, learning and adjusting based on results, persisting until you break through obstacles. The victim asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The creator asks, "What can I learn from this and how can I use it?" The victim sees obstacles as reasons to quit. The creator sees obstacles as feedback about what needs to change. Developing a creator mentality requires consistent practice of taking responsibility. When something goes wrong, instead of immediately looking for external factors to blame, ask yourself what role you played and what you could do differently next time. This isn't about beating yourself up or taking responsibility for things genuinely outside your control. It's about looking for leverage, identifying the elements you can influence, focusing your energy there rather than on complaining about what you can't change. This practice gradually shifts your default orientation from helpless to empowered, from reactive to proactive, from victim to creator. The concept of mental models is crucial for understanding how you interpret reality and make decisions. A mental model is essentially a framework or lens through which you see the world, a set of assumptions and beliefs about how things work that shapes what you notice and how you interpret what you notice. Everyone has mental models, though most people's models are unconscious, inherited from family and culture, never examined or questioned. These unconscious models profoundly influence behavior in ways you never realize. For example, you might have a mental model about money that says money is scarce and hard to get. You have to work extremely hard for every dollar, and wealthy people must have exploited others or gotten lucky. This model will cause you to work harder than necessary for money, to resist opportunities that seem too good to be true, to feel resentful of wealthy people, to unconsciously sabotage your own financial success because achieving it would contradict your model. Or you might have a different mental model that says money is abundant, it flows to those who provide value, wealth is created through innovation and service, and becoming wealthy is a natural result of developing valuable skills and solving real problems. This model will lead to completely different behaviors and results. The key is to make your mental models conscious so you can examine whether they're accurate and useful. What do you believe about money, relationships, success, your own capabilities, other people's motivations, how the world works? Where did these beliefs come from? Are they based on actual evidence or just inherited assumptions? Do they serve you or limit you? Are there alternative models that might be more accurate and more empowering? This examination can be uncomfortable because it requires questioning beliefs you've held so long. They feel like facts rather than interpretations, but it's essential for growth. Updating your mental models based on evidence and results is how you develop wisdom. When your predictions don't match reality, when actions based on your models don't produce expected outcomes, you have valuable feedback that something in your model needs adjustment. Most people resist this feedback, preferring to maintain their existing models even when they're clearly not working. They explain away contradictions, dismiss contrary evidence, anything to avoid the discomfort of admitting they've been wrong about something important. But this resistance to updating models keeps you stuck repeating the same patterns and getting the same unsatisfying results. The wise person, by contrast, holds models lightly, treating them as useful maps rather than absolute truths, always ready to update when better information becomes available. They actively seek out information that challenges their models rather than just consuming information that confirms what they already believe. They run experiments, trying different approaches and carefully observing results rather than rigidly sticking to one method. They're more interested in what's actually true and what actually works than in being right about what they've always believed. This intellectual humility, combined with empirical curiosity, leads to continuously improving models that more accurately reflect reality and more effectively guide action. The practice of systems thinking is particularly valuable for understanding complex situations and solving difficult problems. Most people think in terms of isolated events and simple cause-effect relationships, missing the larger patterns and feedback loops that actually determine outcomes. Systems thinking involves stepping back to see the bigger picture, identifying the key elements of a system, understanding how they interact, recognizing feedback loops that either stabilize or amplify changes, and finding leverage points where small interventions can produce large effects. For example, if you're struggling with weight, simple linear thinking might say, "I need to eat less and exercise more." That's not wrong, but it misses the systemic factors that determine whether you'll actually do those things consistently. A systems view would consider your beliefs about food and body image, your emotional eating triggers, your social environment and food culture, your sleep quality and stress levels, your habits and daily routines, your food environment at home and work, your relationship with physical activity, all the factors that interact to produce your current weight. Changing just one element might have limited effect if the system as a whole is oriented toward maintaining your current state. But identifying leverage points, perhaps addressing emotional eating triggers or completely restructuring your food environment, can shift the entire system. The principle of leverage is crucial in all domains of life. Not all actions are equally effective. Some produce large results with minimal effort, while others require enormous effort for minimal results. The key is identifying high-leverage actions in whatever area you're focused on and prioritizing those over low-leverage busy work. In learning, high leverage might be teaching others what you've learned or solving practice problems, while low leverage might be passively rereading notes. In business, high leverage might be automating repetitive tasks or focusing on your few most profitable activities, while low leverage might be responding to every email immediately or attending meetings that don't require your presence. Finding high leverage actions requires stepping back from the frenzy of constant activity to think strategically about what actually produces results. Most people confuse being busy with being productive, filling their days with urgent but unimportant tasks while neglecting the truly important but not urgent activities that would actually move their lives forward. The important but not urgent category includes things like planning, learning, relationship building, health maintenance, personal development, all the investments that pay enormous dividends over time but don't have immediate deadlines creating pressure. The Eisenhower matrix provides a useful framework for categorizing tasks. Important and urgent tasks require immediate attention, genuine crises, and deadlines that can't be postponed. Important but not urgent tasks are where you should spend most of your time, investing in activities that prevent crises and build long-term capability. Urgent but not important tasks are often other people's priorities imposing on your time. Interruptions and distractions that feel pressing but don't actually contribute to your goals. Not urgent and not important tasks are pure time wasters that should be eliminated entirely. Most people spend too much time on urgent but unimportant tasks and too little time on important but not urgent tasks, which creates a life of constant reactivity and minimal progress toward what truly matters. Protecting time for important but not urgent activities requires saying no to many urgent but unimportant demands on your attention. This is difficult because the urgent creates immediate pressure and social expectations, while the important but not urgent creates no immediate pressure, and often no one but you will hold you accountable for doing it. But this is precisely why most people never achieve their potential. They allow the urgent to crowd out the important until years have passed, and they've made no real progress toward their dreams. Learning to say no, to protect time for what matters most, even when it means disappointing others or leaving some things undone, is essential for a life of genuine achievement and fulfillment. The concept of energy management is as important as time management, perhaps more so. You don't have unlimited energy, and different activities drain or restore energy at different rates. Working on tasks that engage your strengths and interests might leave you energized even after hours of effort. Working on tasks that bore you or require you to operate in areas of weakness can leave you drained after minimal time. People matter too. Some energize you while others deplete you. Understanding your own energy patterns, what drains you and what restores you, allows you to structure your life in ways that maintain high energy rather than leaving you perpetually exhausted. Managing energy requires attention to all four dimensions: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Physical energy comes from sleep, nutrition, exercise, and managing stress. Emotional energy comes from positive relationships, doing work you find meaningful, experiencing beauty and joy, and processing rather than suppressing difficult emotions. Mental energy comes from engaging in challenging but not overwhelming cognitive work, learning new things, creative expression, and avoiding mental fatigue through appropriate rest. Spiritual energy comes from connecting with purpose larger than yourself, living according to your values, contributing to others, and experiencing awe and transcendence. Neglecting any dimension eventually undermines the others, so sustainable high performance requires tending to all four. The rhythm of oscillation between effort and recovery is essential for sustained high performance. You cannot maintain peak intensity continuously without eventually burning out. The most effective approach is alternating between periods of intense focused effort and periods of genuine recovery, both within each day and across longer timescales. Work intensely for focused periods, perhaps 90 minutes at a time, then take real breaks where you move your body, shift your attention completely, allow your mind to rest. Work intensely during your peak hours, then do easier tasks or recover during your natural energy dips. Work intensely during work hours, then genuinely disconnect during off hours rather than maintaining constant partial attention to work. This oscillation allows you to bring full intensity to work periods while avoiding the burnout that comes from trying to maintain constant intensity. The practice of deep rest is particularly important in our always-on culture. Sleep is obviously crucial, but rest goes beyond just sleep. It includes allowing your mind to wander, engaging in activities purely for enjoyment rather than productivity, spending time in nature, connecting with loved ones without agenda. Any activity that allows you to fully disengage from goal-directed effort and simply be. Many high achievers resist rest, seeing it as wasted time that could be spent on productive activity, never realizing that rest is what makes sustained productivity possible. The body and mind need periods of recovery to repair, consolidate learning, process experiences, and restore energy for the next period of intense effort. As we near the end of this comprehensive exploration of mental mastery, it's worth reflecting on the broader implications of developing your mind. This isn't just about personal success or achievement, though it certainly supports those outcomes. It's about becoming more fully human, expressing your unique potential, contributing your gifts to the world, living with integrity and purpose. When you develop your mental capabilities, you become more able to understand others, to solve problems that matter, to create value and beauty, to raise consciousness in yourself and others. You become someone who lifts rather than drags down, who illuminates rather than obscures, who builds rather than destroys. The world desperately needs people who have taken the time and effort to develop themselves, to think clearly, to act with wisdom, to respond to challenges with creativity and resilience rather than fear and reactivity. Every time you choose growth over comfort, awareness over unconsciousness, responsibility over victimhood, you're not just improving your own life, you're raising the collective capability of humanity. The work you do on yourself ripples outward in ways you may never fully see, influencing everyone you interact with, everyone who observes your example, everyone who benefits from what you create and contribute. This perspective transforms self-development from potentially selfish navel-gazing into something noble and necessary. You're not developing your mind just so you can have more stuff or feel better about yourself, though those might be welcome side effects. You're developing your mind so you can become a better partner, parent, friend, colleague, citizen, contributor. You're developing your mind so you can see more clearly, think more accurately, act more wisely, serve more effectively. You're developing your mind because you have gifts that the world needs, potential that will remain dormant unless you deliberately cultivate it, and contributions to make that only you can offer. Please check out the other videos in our library here at Audiobook Library, where you'll find many more transformative works that can continue your journey of growth and understanding. each one carefully selected to provide genuine value and practical wisdom that can elevate every aspect of your life. The invitation before you is clear. Take what you've learned here and put it into practice. Don't let this just be interesting information that you consume and forget. Let it be the catalyst for genuine transformation in your life. Choose one practice and commit to it for 30 days. Experience the results firsthand. Build on that foundation with additional practices. Return to these principles regularly because repetition is how they become integrated into your way of being rather than just concepts you once heard about. Share what you're learning with others, both to deepen your own understanding and to help them on their journeys. Remember that mastering your mind is not about perfection, but about direction. You will have setbacks, moments of unconsciousness, days when old patterns reassert themselves. This is completely normal and expected. What matters is that you notice when you've wandered off track and choose to return to your path. What matters is that the general trajectory of your life is upward, that you're growing even if progress is sometimes slower than you'd like. What matters is that you're taking responsibility for your development rather than waiting passively for life to improve on its own. The techniques and principles you've absorbed here have been tested across thousands of lives over more than a century. They're not theoretical speculation, but practical wisdom that produces real results when genuinely applied. You now possess knowledge that can transform every aspect of your existence, that can take you from wherever you are today to heights you can barely imagine right now. The only question remaining is what you'll do with this knowledge, whether it will sit dormant as interesting ideas you once encountered, or whether it will become the foundation for a life of continuous growth, increasing capability, and meaningful contribution. Your mind is waiting to be mastered. The potential within you is waiting to be expressed. The life you dream of is waiting to be created. Everything necessary for transformation is already within your grasp. All that's required now is the decision to begin, the commitment to continue, and the patience to trust that small daily practices compound into extraordinary results over time. Make that decision today. Begin the practices that call to you most strongly. Trust the process even when you can't see immediate evidence of progress, and watch as your life gradually transforms in ways you once thought were only possible for other people, but which are actually possible for anyone willing to understand and apply these timeless principles of mental mastery. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the journey of complete mental transformation begins with a single practice, a single choice, a single moment of deciding that you will no longer be a passive recipient of whatever thoughts happen to arise or whatever conditioning you happen to receive, but an active creator of your mental patterns, your capabilities, your experience, your life. Take that step now and discover what becomes possible when you finally unleash the magnificent power of the extraordinary instrument between your ears. The power that has always been there, waiting for you to recognize it, claim it, develop it, and use it to create a life that reflects your highest potential and serves your deepest purpose. This is your birthright, your opportunity, your responsibility. The only real question is whether you'll answer the call or let this moment pass like so many others. Another burst of inspiration that fades without action. Another glimpse of possibility that remains forever unrealized. Choose action. Choose growth. Choose mastery. Your future self will thank you for the decision you make right now, in this moment, to finally become the master of your mind and, through that mastery, the architect of your destiny.